It's a very important session. Well, they asked me to introduce myself again, and I will do that. I suppose when we started the very first day, some of the people were not here. I'm Yvonne Katsande, an investigative journalist with LN24 International. I have been a journalist for the longest time, in actual fact, for the longest time, and I've had different experiences in my field of work, from continents, different continents, country to country, talking about the issues that matter and asking the questions that are important to the people that we need to get answers from. So I won't really get into my profile, trust me, but if you want to get to know much about me, I suppose you can actually visit some of my accounts, my social media accounts. You'll be able to get a full picture of who I am for those that were asking for me to introduce myself. But right now we're going to go into a session that is of paramount importance, if I must say. We all know that we cannot do anything that is meaningful without the money aspect of it, right? You have to have money for you to be able to either start up your business, be influential, and speak and be heard. So we want to talk about money on the continent of Africa. What does money mean? Where does it come from? Whether we're speaking about the funding part of it, but what is the funding from Africa or for Africa? Who is it supposed to come from, or what is the situation supposed to be? So we want to dissect that whole subject in full. And, we'll have a panel discussion here, and a very important guest will help us to speak about it. Before I even introduce my guest, I wanted to read something for you here of the script that I was putting together in terms of this finance.
Excuse me. No, I'll be translating because I'm not extra word. I use speak alone to translate.
Oh, okay. So you can go ahead and translate what I said about, or should I just continue?
No, just go.
All right. So I wanted to talk about the Pan-African drive and vision of sovereignty. It's just a small intro before I introduce our important guests. So the Pan-African drive and vision of sovereignty, very important. President Jacob Zuma has long been recognized as one of the African leaders who championed a sovereign and self-reliant Africa. So this was inspired by the legacy of Pan-African greats like Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, Julius Nyerere, Muammar Gaddafi, and Robert Mugabe. Now, in the early 2000s, the late Libyan Muammar Gaddafi and former South African President Jacob Zuma spearheaded discussions towards establishing an African monetary fund and African investment bank initiatives. And this was designed to free the continent from dependence on Western financial institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. And Libya was one of the largest African investors in South Africa at that time, demonstrating Gaddafi's intent to circulate African wealth within Africa. However, those ambitions were interrupted, and later, the French president at that time, Nicolas Sarkozy, was arrested in connection with attempts to access the Libyan funds, raising questions about how Africa can protect its wealth from external manipulation and, of course, appropriation. Sometimes I imagine if Muammar Gaddafi was still alive, if Robert Mugabe was still alive, where would we have been with the African dinar? The African dinar was the currency that they wanted to start for Africa. Where would Africa be right now? So our leaders are eliminated for having great ideas, but I want to invite our great panelist this morning who's going to expand that. He's a man with such a diverse wealth of wisdom and experience in these kind of issues because, he's served in the political arena. He's been a part of policy making. So he's very well versed with the topic that we want to talk about today. And then after he's done his presentation, we'll also have a Q&A so that we're able to interact and ask the questions and feed each other with information that we need. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, with a big round of applause, help me welcome Ambassador William Wallace, the Ambassador from Trinidad and Tobago to Nigeria, and a great Pan-Africanist. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
So my topic this morning would go directly to what my dear sister here has talked about, the IMF. My topic, the World Bank, IMF, and the debt trap, reclaiming Africa's economic sovereignty. My distinguished members of the ADDI, the government of Burkina Faso, led by the indomitable Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the current leader of the African vision that we want. Today, we confront a subject that pierces to the very soul of Africa's struggle for self-determination. The burden of debt and the financial architecture that has, for too long, kept our nations in chains and, I dare say, in total poverty. So, my distinguished members here, today, because we are talking a Pan-African conversation, so we need to understand what is keeping Africa back. And of course, one of the key things is finance and the debt trap that has been set for Africa from time immemorial to ensure that we never get out of the chains of financial debt and poverty. So, what are we talking about? The promise and the paradox. The promise and the paradox. Excellent. Very good. So, I'm going to start about the promise and the paradox.
Je vais commencer avec la promesse et le parallèle.
When the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund were created in 1944, their mission was to rebuild economies shattered and scattered by war and to promote political and global stability. But ever since that time, their focus shifted from reconstruction to regulation, from partners in development to architects of conditional dependency.
I have to read it.
Yeah, okay. So, let's do this. When I'm finished, I will ask him to read through for the French-speaking of our brothers and sisters here. Is that okay? Is that better? Yes, that would be much better because I don't like the idea of having to stop and start for translation. So those of you who are here and who are French-speaking, I will ask my brother here when I'm through to go through what I've said in French. Is that okay?
It's okay.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so let's go back to the promise and the paradox. Now, when the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund were created in 1944, their mission was to rebuild economies shattered by war and to promote global stability. Now, remember, that did not include us. We were not part of the war in Europe. We were not part of any of that. But they had a Marshall Plan and they wanted economic stability. But over time, their focus shifted. And where did it shift to? Now, the reconstruction to regulation, that is what it shifted to. Regulation, to regulate finances. From partners in development to architects of conditional dependency. And for Africa, this shift has been extremely costly. Not only in dollars and cents, but in lost opportunity, in diminished sovereignty, and in generations of deferred dreams. The numbers tell the story. Over the past 15 years, and that is just recent, Africa's external public debt has risen from about 200 billion to over 700 billion. And that is in 15 years. Africa's debt, think about it, in the past 15 years, has risen from 200 billion to 700 billion. We are approaching, in the next 2 to 3 years, $1 trillion in debt. Are you all hearing this? Are you all focusing on what that actually really means for the continent? That dependency. right? Now, when you think about it, more than half of our low-income nations are either in or dangerously close to debt distress. I want you to think about this very closely. Half of our countries nations, I don't call them countries, half of our nations on the continent are now in financial distress. Let that sink in for a second. Financial distress. Repeat after me. Financial distress. Good. And that is extremely costly. This means that for every dollar we earn, a growing share is diverted, not to public schools, not to expand healthcare, not to empower farmers, but to service debt. To service debt. Think about it, what I've just said. The monies that we are earning are not being put to use for our development. Not at all. It is for servicing debt. Now, what do we say to that? Much of it is contracted under conditions we did not fully design. Do you know that sometimes some contracts in Chinese are signed in Chinese? You have no idea what that contract means. Nobody has been able to tell you what that contract means, but they just come to you and say, oh, you owe us, we are taking over your port. Oh, you owe us, we are taking over your airport. Oh, you owe us, we are taking over your oil refinery. That means we are shackled totally. We cannot grow. We cannot determine our future by ourselves because we are in financial distress. Can you repeat after me? We are in financial, and that is what we've got to stop. Right, now, we can't build schools. We can't build and expand our health care, not to empower the farmers, but to service these debt. And they are not our design. The cycle, and this is very important, how they do this. The cycle is familiar. We borrow to grow, we grow to service, and then tomorrow again, we borrow to survive. Think of the cycle. What did I just say? The cycle is familiar. We borrow to grow. That's what we say. We grow to service, and then we borrow again to survive. How, my friends, how, my brothers and sisters, can Africa survive if all we do is we borrow to service, and that is to service the debt, and then we borrow again, and we borrow again, and then we borrow again? This does not make sense. This cannot be. It cannot continue. And so, this, my friends, as I've just said there, is a survival that leads to nowhere. Is the anatomy of foolishness, and is the anatomy of the debt trap. The course of conditionality. Let us, for a minute, speak plainly. Loans from the IMF and the World Bank rarely come without conditions. They all come with conditions. What are some of the conditions? They tell you reduce dependency, take away subsidies, take away social programs, and they want you to ensure that you do not have any way to assist your countrymen, your people on the continent to grow. Whether it's farmers, whether it is manufacturers, local manufacturers, they ensure that you are just there to service their debt. And it is your money, it is your raw material resources that they use as conditionalities. It is whatever you have grown a nice port, they will want to take that over. You have grown a beautiful airport to increase tourism, they want to take that over. Everything that you have built to grow your country, they now put it into the debt trap. Your money, your gold, goes to their central banks, and those central banks keep your money and lend it back to you at exorbitant rates. Does that make sense? I mean, brothers and sisters, does that make any sense? Right. We have got to stop that. So, something is really wrong with the system. Fiscal austerity is one of the things they do. Currency liberalization, because they want your currency to devalue. And that is what Gaddafi was doing. He was making sure we had a standard currency that was backed by our resources. The resources under our feet runs into not just trillions, but zillions, because these are immovable resources that they continue to explore and explore. But if we use that for a standard currency, not even the dollar, not even the yuan, none of them can compete with us. Why? Because they print paper. They just pull it out of the sky. They pull paper. It is not backed by anything. The Federal Reserve Bank is not owned by the United States of America government. You know that. It is owned by the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers. And when the government was, why are they into trillions in debt at the moment? Because it is paper. So they come foolishly, well, I have to say foolishly because our leaders are foolish. They give us paper and they take the raw material resources. Wholesale. They take our gold out, our diamond, our platinum, our lithium. They take these things out. And when they do, they now give us paper. Paper that they print from nowhere and tell you it has a value. And it is backed by nothing. Absolutely nothing. So, ladies and gentlemen, what Gaddafi was doing and why they had to kill him, and I blame a brother who was president at the time, half African, Obama, allowed this damn thing to happen. He should be shot. I'm saying it, yes. You know, look at what they do all the time. They bring Langley here to try to overthrow the whole AES. These people are house niggers. So, all imposed in the name of returns. But too often, these conditions have constrained our policy space, weakened our productive base, and undermined our ability to invest in our people. It has undermined the ability for us to invest in our people, our African people. So when a government must disclose between repaying debts and funding education, between meeting IMF targets and feeding its citizens, something is deeply wrong with the system. And I say today, and we must say today, we must reinvent the African monetary fund system and get rid of IMF, get rid of the World Bank, unshackle ourselves from this. So, I say this is deeply wrong. Now, let's take Ghana as a reflection. I'm just going to use one example or so. Right? Ghana, a reflection of the continent in my own engagement across the continent. In the case of Ghana, stands as both a lesson and a warning. Are you hearing me? As a lesson and a warning. Why do I say that? The IMF program of 2022 brought temporary fiscal relief. Yes, but I also demanded contraction. Public investment showed, social spending tightened, and local industries struggled to breathe under the weight of new taxes and austerity measures. This is not a Ghanaian story alone. It is the African story. From Lusaka to Lilongwe, from Nairobi to Accra, the sovereign question, debt is not merely an economic issue. It is a question of sovereignty and I dare say it is a fiscal weaponization against Africa. It is a fiscal weaponization against Africa. They see it as a way to bring the whole African issue of growth down to zero. Think about it. We are in the cycle always of a debt trap. Borrow to grow, but grow to service their debt. And after you service their debt, you borrow again. So it's a cycle. And we've got to cut that cycle at the moment. I want you all to think about how we are going to cut that cycle. And part of it is what you're doing here. Come home, bring your brains, bring your investment, use your investment to help grow any economy in Africa that you choose to come to. Any economy. Just start coming. Coming. That's what this is all about. The diaspora coming home. Am I saying the right thing? The diaspora coming home. So a nation that must seek approval, listen to this quite clearly. A nation that must seek approval before it can spend on its own citizens is not truly independent. It cannot be. Because if you have to decide, oh, I cannot spend on healthcare for this year, I have to pay off the debt. I have to pay the IMF. I have to pay the World Bank. And they send in. You ever heard of the economic hitman? Yes. The economic hitman? Yes. Those of you who have not heard about it, go and Google it. They are worse than the boots on the ground. Because at the boots on the ground, I'm a military person, they run out of ammunition. After a while, if you can't feed them, if you can't continue to sustain them, they withdraw. But the economic hitmen are there every day. They come in and they sit in your office and they tell you what to do. Can you imagine that? That you have your own government and you cannot decide what you're going to do with their funds, even their borrowed funds that you borrowed from them. You cannot. You are saying, I want to build 10 hospitals. I say, no. Don't build any hospitals now. You have to pay. You have to pay your debts. You have to service your debt. So a nation that must first seek approval before it can spend on its own citizens is not truly independent. The debt trap has become a new form of control. Quiet, legal, and devastatingly effective. Devastatingly effective because they're like Rottweilers. They put their teeth into you and they do not let go until they pull flesh. They do not. They are there to make sure they suck the blood out of you and ensure that you do not grow for your country. You do not grow for your nation. Are being managed through conditionality. And our future mortgaged by signatures inked in desperation. So your leaders, in desperation, sign. And by the way, I must tell you, they have a lot of leverage on these leaders. A lot. Some of them, what are they? They are Freemasons. Yes. Right? Yes. They are Freemasons. They belong to different cults. They have different things that they like. Let's not talk about it because they're all bugged when they come to the UN and other places. They know your likes and dislikes and they come to you and say, oh, I see what you like. Oh, is that what it is that you like? Okay, small boys, this, that, okay. They have a leverage. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Our leaders are mortgaged. They are mortgaged. So they quickly sign in desperation. I've got to ensure that the World Bank gets their money. And all of a sudden, all the dreams that you had for the country, meaningfully, some leaders do want to do things, but then they are stopped. Thank God for people like Ibrahim Traore. The debt trap, I said, has become a new term for control. It's a new form of control. Quiet, legal, and devastatingly effective. I repeat that. Our economies are being managed through conditionality. And our future is mortgaged by signatures, inked, I said, in desperation. And, when you look at these things, you wonder how our African continent is going to get out of these debt traps. So there's a maze, right? There is a maze. And the maze is a complex and opaque system. Our debt landscape is now a big maze. And here are the mazes, and note them. Here are the mazes. Paris Club, China, private bondholders, multilaterals, commercial banks, each pulling in different directions. And because of these agreements, which are made and cloaked in confidentiality, always cloaked in confidentiality. Have you ever been able to read a Chinese contract for development in infrastructure? Has that ever been in the newspapers, transparent for everyone in the nation that you are in to see? No. Where is the transparency? There is no transparency. And they always make sure that it's cloaked in secrecy. It's cloaked in confidentiality. That's the words that they use. It's a very clever trap. Don't tell your nation what you're signing. This is confidential between the World Bank or the China Exim Bank and or the Paris Club and you. And when I say you, I mean you. Because they pay off these guys. They pay them off. Okay, we give you a mansion in Paris, we give you a house in Dubai, we give you something in New York. All of your family will be schooled to a PhD, and that's it. And that's it. And you thought, oh, you want to include some of your boys? Yeah, sure. So imagine maybe maximum 200 people in your country has mortgaged your entire country because they have files on all of them. They have files, as I said. They leverage that, and because they love the power, because they love riding around in Rolls Royces, because they love saying, I'm shopping in Paris, I'm in New York, right? They love that. They know your greed, and so they buy off these people. And that is how they were able to kill Thomas Sankara, because they bought an idiot who's a greedy man and should be shot. Somebody should assassinate him where he is. Stop the development of the continent by greed. Greed and ego. I'm not afraid to say it. And we should not be afraid to say it. So, how can the people govern themselves when the debts are secret? How can we plan for tomorrow when we do not know the true cost of the day? You don't know the true cost of that debt. You never do. You only hear it at some point in time when they are calling that, say, oh, you owe us 30 billion. And suddenly the public knows that. The public knows that you owe 30 billion. But where were you in the decision-making process when that contract of borrowing was signed? You knew nothing about it, so that you and your MPs could say, no, Mr. Government, no, we do not want to borrow at this interest rate for this, and that's it. No. So we have to start demanding transparency in any borrowing that the continent is doing. I said some years ago, and it was one of the interviews they had with me, I don't know if they took it down or what. In the AU, what is the AU? You have the European Union, right? The European Union, together as a body, they borrow, don't they? The European Union as a body borrow. What the hell is wrong with the African Union? The African Union are there to protect us. You should not have individual countries or individual nations signing any contracts with regards to debt. The African Union should have a team of Chinese, a team of, when I say Chinese translators, etc., examine those contracts and say whether it is good. That is our first port of call. In the military, that's your first defense. Your first line of defense is the goddamn AU. What is the AU doing? They are not protecting the rest of the continent. You should sign on behalf of the nations of the AU, not the individuals. So what do? They handpick every Gambia, Nigeria, this one, that one, and they do individual deals. Because you know when they do individual deals, they are individualizing the debt contract. The AU should stand in the middle and say, we have a team, and our team will examine what is the priority for this nation that you want to come and do business in. What is their priority? And we will examine those contracts. I don't know if it's been pulled down, but I said it. I said it 3, 4, 5 years ago, that the AU should be the signatory to any debt that is, or loans that is being offered on the continent. There's absolutely no way that individual nations like little Botswana, like Eswatini, can go and borrow, and you don't even know what is the terms. You as a people don't know what are the terms that are putting you into poverty. This must stop, and we must demand either the AU is got rid of itself a parallel organization, or they get out of the doing the job of the continent. We must stop that. So, my brothers and sisters, I'm going back to the main issue here and the sovereign debt. I get very passionate about this because I realize that we are, and anyway, that's why we're having this conversation. So what's the path forward? What's the path forward? The path forward is to break this cycle. Africa must take back control of its economic narrative. We must demand transparency. Every loan, every guarantee, every term must be made public. It must be made public. That has to be a policy strategy of any government on the continent. We must demand, and this is where IDDI, I'm chairman of the African International Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and we are demanding this. We, as an institution, also are demanding this. We must ensure to break this cycle that every loan, listen to me and write it down, every loan, every guarantee, every term must be made public. I'm not hearing you. Must be made public. So that is something that will come out of this here and our declaration. It must be made public. We must invest in domestic debt markets and regional sovereign wealth mechanisms, allowing us to finance growth in currencies, not foreign ones. We must strengthen African financial institutions, Afrexim Bank, African Development Bank, and the emerging platforms like the AIS Exchange, the African International Exchange. Are you hearing what I'm saying? I don't think you're hearing me. Are you hearing what I'm saying? We must invest in our own institutions. Let us learn among ourselves. How do the Jews, how do the Indians, how do the Chinese develop? They share the money among themselves, they loan among themselves, and they grow among themselves. We need to start that narrative, strengthen the institutions we have. So, to mobilize investment capital and diaspora savings within our own ecosystem is what we have to do. Dr. Arikana spoke about the African Legacy Bank, the African Legacy Fund. I want us, wherever we go back to, start pouring money into a legacy fund. Start pouring money into our own bank that we can start and put money towards expanding, growing, and putting towards the right type of investment. Let us not fool ourselves. The World Bank and IMF and others will always strangle us with debt, and we can only break free by increasing our wealth and having our own institutions strengthened. So, we must speak with one voice in international negotiations. I just spoke about that. One voice. If it's not the African Union, then let it be ADDI, let it be AICCI. Let us promote ourselves to be the one voice. If these idiots at the AU just spending time following their master's voice, then get rid of them. And I'm serious about that. You know, a lot of people talk, but nobody walks the walk. I'm not interested in orators. I'm not interested in orators. They have their role to play. A lot of people go and they speak, they take up a mic and they speak very nicely and they talk about a lot of things. Ask them, as my sister here said, what's the next step? What's the implementation plan? We are talking here now about implementation plans. How do we break the cycle? Right? How do we break the cycle? So, a fragmented Africa is a vulnerable Africa. The term, united we stand, divided we fall, is exactly that. What did I just say before? I said they pick off every single individual nation on the continent, one by one. They know what your weaknesses are, they know what your strengths are, and they know when to push you with debt, and they already get the leaders who they bought over. You are finished. So this, a fragmented Africa cannot hold. And that is why they had to kill Muammar Gaddafi. That's why they had to kill Thomas Sankara. And that is why they're aiming their shots all over to Ibrahim Traore and the AES. But we will never let that happen. But a united Africa is an unstoppable force. The role of the African International Chamber of Commerce and Industry, my chamber, is we stand ready to lead in this new era. We will work to, one, establish a continental debt task force to conduct independent audits and publish transparent reports. You hear what I've just said? It's one of the things we are taking on as the AICCI, the African International Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We are going to establish a continental debt task force to conduct independent audit and publish transparent reports. That is taking the next steps. That is implemented. Because that we need to know. We need to know who is owing what and why. And we will get that done. And we will publish it. It's important because when you publish it, you are exposing them. Not only are you exposing them, you are exposing the leaders.
Accountability.
Huh?
Accountability.
Yes.
Accountability.
There's accountability. So you make them up because you put them there to lead. And if they cannot lead, you get rid of them. By any means necessary. Our American brother said the revolution, by any means necessary. We say it again, by any means necessary. Yeah. It's an unacceptable stand. Number two, we're going to advocate for growth-friendly debt restructuring. And what do we mean by that? Okay, so you already have the debts, right? We are going to ask and advocate for a growth-friendly debt restructuring that protects social spending and sustains development. So, all right, we have your debt, but just like any bank you go to, you know you can restructure your loan, right? When you go, the bank says, okay, all right, we restructure your loan, and then, you pay us, at this rate, and but you still have our debt there. But yes, we know that you are growing. We want to be able to do that. And we are going to do it. We are going to advocate for, replacing of the loan, right, with a restructuring, debt-friendly, growth-friendly, because it's already there, right? Unless we see that those debts were signed, without the country knowing what they really signed for, we will ask for those debts to be dismissed. Yes, because if you don't know what you're signing, and you did not know what you signed because it was written in some Confucius language, then, you have to forgive that debt. Yes. And if you took our resources at undervalue, we do, or those of us who are mathematicians here, we do an equation. Yes, we do an equation. You got these resources undervalued, like they've been taking here from Burkina Faso before, the uranium at $8 and send them at $1,000. Okay, the marginal difference is from 1,000 minus 8 is what? 992, not so? So we apply that 992 multiplied by how many you took out against the debt that you made us incur. Isn't that a nice mathematical forgiveness? We have applied maths, haven't we? Yes. So, we are going to build capacity within our member states. That is one of the things we are going to do, right? Without asking for permission. Training negotiations. We bring in economists, policymakers through our chambers and training centers. So those who are economists here gather, those who are strategic thinkers, these are the people we want your brain power. Put it into IDDI, put it into AICCI, and start developing the fight to accountability for those debts that IMF and World Bank has pushed on our people. So we ask all of you to join and keep joining and keep contributing and putting your mind, your brain power, your talent, your experience, your expertise to work for the greater good. And that greater good is Africa. So we mobilize private and diaspora capital to reduce our dependency on external creditors. Through these actions, the ADDI, the AICCI will ensure that Africa's voice is heard. Very important, because if we don't let them know that we are thinking, if we don't let them know that we are exposing, if we don't let them know that we are aware, if we don't let them know that they were unfair, right, they will continue to do what they are doing, and they will do it with the leaders that they have bought out. Not so? Yes. So it's not an echo, but a force shaping global financial governance. So we are saying we're going to have an African financial governance, a governance strategy with governance policy, with a governance approach that we have directed as the strategic policy aims of the continent through these vehicles, because the AU is not protecting the continent. So it has to take visionaries like us, like ADDI, like AICCI, to say enough is enough. We are going to expose you one way or the other. And we'll shame the AU. We'll shame the leaders, those who have been bought out. You have to. And we will shame IMF and shame the World Bank. Yes. It has to be a win-win. If you are bringing loans, you are going to take those loans at a rate that every other bank does, or own institutions. And you will not ask us to reduce our growth plans for our countries, our nations, which is health, food security, etc., because we need that as a nation and a continent to grow. So, what it is we want, the call for economic liberation, my brothers and sisters. We're living through a second liberation struggle. Do you realize what is happening here? We had the first freedom liberation struggle through our brothers Mandela, Zuma, Zimbabwe, Mugabe, etc. That was a liberation to free our people and think we were getting back our land and our liberty and our resources to make use of it. Unfortunately, they were distracted, they were bought out, they went the other way. But we are now going through a second liberation. That second liberation is economic liberation. Why do you think Malema started EFF? Economic Freedom Fighters. We all must become economic freedom fighters today. We must all become economic freedom fighters because we are now going through the economic liberation struggle. So this is not fought with guns and bayonets, but with ideas, policies, and persistence. I ask you, I dare you to be consistent and to be persevering. Don't stop what we have started here today. When you remember back, those of us who knew what the Black Panthers did, what the struggle of Marcus Garvey was, it was consistent. Consistent, they persevered. They persevered. So this now is the new movement, and we have the ground for it. Burkina Faso is the ground. All roads, that's what it says, all roads lead to Ouagadougou. All roads lead to Ouagadougou. Why? Why? Because we have a platform, we have a visionary leader, and we have the ground where we can come and disseminate our ideas, where we can start to build. And this AES will be a model for Africa. It's starting already. The Gen Z, the youth of this continent, are starting to say enough is enough. And they are revolting, and we must support them. Revolt and get rid of these 92-year-old leaders, etc. Get rid of them. Empower them. So, as we said, the second must free our economies. Africa does not seek sympathy. We seek fairness. It must be a win-win. What is a marriage? A marriage is a win-win, not so. You are helping each other to grow as one. Not so? You're married, you're helping each other to grow as one. And you build, and you build, and you build. And that's what we have to do as a race of people, right? We seek fairness. We do not demand handouts. We demand equity. And we do not aspire to remain borrowers, right? We do not aspire to remain borrowers. We mend our own fences within our member states. We ensure that we, as a people, grow together. Very important. So, we are not borrowers, and we intend to be builders of industries, of wealth, and of a future owned by Africans themselves. I termed something we call Africacy. You heard it yesterday, I'm repeating it again today. Not democracy, none of these systems that they put on our heads. We were running our governments long before, thousands of years before they came. Al-Kepulan. We were doing things ourselves. So Africacy is Africans doing it for themselves, by themselves. African solutions to African problems. We can do it. We have the most enlightened people in the world. They go any part of the world, they excel. We excel. We go through all the hardships, and yet we still shine. Let's do that here. Let's do that here on the continent. Use this fertile ground of Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou, Niger, Mali, and all the others who are toppling their governments. They are now realizing that the youths of the continent are saying enough is enough, and they're going to topple the rest of these governments. That is what they fear at the moment, because a united Africa is going to be stronger than we have the resources. We have it. So, in closing, let us rise together. Rise. Everyone rise. Let's rise together and declare. I want us to rise and declare and say after me, no longer shall. Have you had breakfast? No longer shall the debt trap
No longer shall the debt trap
define Africa's destiny.
define Africa's destiny.
No longer shall our policies be dictated by distant boardrooms. The future we want,
The future we want,
the future we seek,
the future we seek,
the Africa we deserve.
the Africa we deserve.
Yes. I'm also a banker, so we understand what is happening. So the CFA, to get rid of the CFA, just like was said before, you now ask anybody who is trading with you to bring back gold. They want to pay, let them pay in gold. The Europeans, let them pay in gold. Replace the CFA with a standard currency. Let's start with the Sahel, because at least the Sahel has broken away from ECOWAS. It has broken away from the AU. They are our model for Africa. They are our model for Africa. So do away, all you have to do is you print your own currency. We can print and we can make our own gold coins. We can make our own gold coins, right? And use that our currency exchange. Zimbabwe has started. The Zim dollar is gold. Are you aware of that? Huh?
It's backed by gold. You see, that's the thing. The
Yeah,
currency
gold,
is
yeah.
backed by gold.
Huh?
Backed by gold.
Backed by gold. It's backed by gold. So when you print your own currency, you are printing it against a value. So it can, yeah, sure. It can be done. It must be done. It will be done. Those of us who are thinkers, we don't advertise. You don't advertise what you're going to do to the enemy. See what they did to us, right? You work quietly. The AES has a model. Let's use what we have to get what we want. Others will follow. You have to see what AES is doing and follow that model. And when you follow that model, it's happening. Madagascar, Tanzania is in flames. Cameroon is in flames. Everybody is seeing the truth now. And the more we expose how the underbelly of the AU is not fitting the continent's wishes, and the continent is 75% you, then it has to be gotten rid of. Trying to strengthen, change, and say, who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Can you do it? No, you can't. Can I do it? No, I can't. They are the policy. Who is putting the money into them? They are, and the money is with the French, right? The money is British. The money is German. The money is American. The money is Japan. The money is China. They are going to pull the strings and continue to pull the strings. You do not allow it. So really and truly, as far as I'm concerned, the AU is dead and should be buried.